Thank you for coming, Brother Aakhu.
All right, dua to you, good brother, and it is always an honor to be here. I've known about your community for some time, some years, and so to be, featured on and to be connected as an extension of the family, I certainly feel like it's an honor, and a time that indeed has arrived, and so. I want to begin by just saying, a special, if you will, Hetep or supreme peace, first and foremost, to the energy that we know as that we can use the term Pa-Netta or Nebuger, the supreme being, the transcendent being that we are all a part of. We are all not disconnected from. So we're not talking about something that is outside of us. We're talking about something that we are inside of, and in many ways we are. Yeah.
Yes.
We want to first make homage to that great force, and then to the Neteru, the emanations of that force that give rise to the perceptual reality that we experience as human beings, comes out of the Neteru, right? The cosmic forces. And that could be Asar, Set, Heru, Heteru, Tahuti, Happy, Sekhmet, Bast, and we can go on and on. Shashita, Ptah, we can go on for days. There are literally hundreds and thousands of them. So we want to make a special honoring of those energies. And then, of course, to the Shepsu Aakhu, which is a term that in our tradition we use to represent the venerated ancestors, or those enlightened sages that brought forth the mystic knowledge. Yeah, this understanding that we are sharing didn't come right now. We come from a culture that saw itself as divine, and saw the personalities within it as divine, and saw the work of life as the the self-awareness, the self-journeying to that full alignment and awareness of that divinity, because within that divinity is an infinite aspect of power, and that power is not something that we use to take over somebody else. Yeah, it's a shared power. It's a shared resource that when we all come together in a certain energy, unification, we project into the world the best of ourselves and the best of the divine in us as well. And this is what I feel that Kemet represents from my understanding of it and the studies that I have done. Kemet is a vast topic, to be honest. I think it really would be impossible for somebody to claim to know it all. But there are areas that one can go in and specialize, or there are general energies that you can make yourself aware of, and the knowledge is growing as we speak, each and every day. Yeah. And the most important aspect is to remember that what we're looking at when we look at the past is very present within us right now. Yeah. So Kemet is who and what we are. Yeah. Kemet is not what was. Kemet is also what is. And Kemet is also what will always be. Yeah. Because when we use the word Kem in the Kemetic culture, the color of blackness is associated with divinity. So even though we say land of the blacks, which would be correct, it's also hinting at divinity as well, right? So Black in our indigenous culture represents a very high vibrational frequency, whereas in this culture, we run away from being Black because that's considered negative, right? And so we see that the worlds have been reversed. So we acknowledge all those presences within us right now. And I would say to you, if you have any special, ancestors or anything that have brought you to where you are in terms of your consciousness, have been the inspirations, the guiding lights, where you are, let's go ahead and for a second close your eyes and think of them. Yeah. And then vocally say their name. Alexander Sargent, Daisy Ferguson. Yeah. They say to call the name of the ancestors is to make them live again. Yeah. Good. That's it. Okay, so that was just to set the tone for today's conversation. Is it okay if I continue on from here, or do we want to have an interjection at this point? Am I free to fly?
Fly, soar like a hawk.
There you go. Absolutely. Good. So if you remember last time we got together, we had a conversation about the Kemetaphysics of yoga, liberation, and sovereignty, right? And, you know, in the world, and in I would say in the tradition of yoga, it is very rare to hear somebody say that yoga has anything to do with liberation or sovereignty. You could say it has something to do with health, it has something to do with well-being, maybe it has something to do with stress relief, you know. It's very rare, but we, you know, prayerfully, I did a good job of peeling back the layers of yoga to some degree, where you could see why it is, in fact, the if you will, the cornerstone of true liberation and sovereignty, right? And who remembers why yoga is the cornerstone of liberation and sovereignty? Anybody would like to, before we go on? Did I make you nervous? You didn't know I was going to.
You said that they are the movements that we honor the Netaru with, or the movements are divine.
Yeah, movements are
Something
divine.
like that.
Okay, so let me ask you, who remembers the definition of yoga? What does yoga mean? Is then that?
Well, we have a sister here, Cherie Kara. No, no, not her. Okay.
Yeah, she would be cheating.
Okay, sorry.
She did 4.5 months of knowing this stuff, so she should be, yeah, she should be banned from that particular question. Or if she gets it wrong, she should be, you know, excommunicated.
It means to link back.
It means to link back. That's one good, yeah. And so the way we would think about linking back, by the way, because, you know, you could say link back. Another way you could think about that in a simple term is to unify. Yeah.
Brother Aunkh, Sister Judy has her hand up.
Go ahead, Judy. You wanted to say something?
Yes, I was going to say another way to say it is to unify.
Very good.
That I was going to say unity with the Most High, but
absolutely. So yes, and I'm sure you didn't say that because you heard me say it and you didn't put your hand up and said, okay, now I'm going to say that I was going to say what he said.
Of course not.
Of course not. Absolutely not. Yeah, but you're absolutely right. See, this is important because when we have conversations about yoga in the Western world, we generally are not talking about unity. Yeah. And we're definitely not talking about a spiritual type of unity. Right. And one can argue that any form of unity is spiritual in the first place, right? For it to happen. So this is important because the minute you say unity, liberation, and sovereignty, can you see how unity plays into sovereignty? Can you see how unity plays into liberation? Would that be important? Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So all of a sudden, if you just, because yoga is just a Sanskrit word for to unify. That's all it is. To yoke, to link, to unify. It's just a Sanskrit word. That's it. Just put it in English. You'll be saying, if we called yoga not a Sanskrit word and call it in English, we'd say, we're going to unity classes.
There's another hand up. Sugar D has her hand up.
Go ahead.
And you also said something about, when you talked about yoga, you did say something about liberation, sovereignty, and divine power.
Mm-hmm. I did.
Yes.
Okay, you just wanted to remind me of that? Good.
Well, you know, when you were saying that who remembered, and I remember writing it down and remembering that.
Absolutely.
You said the Kemetaphysics of yoga, liberation and sovereignty and divine power, that sort of stuck with me.
Absolutely. And it is a matter of divine power, right? And when you're talking about sovereignty, by the way, you are talking about divine power. You're talking about being a power that can neutralize any power that will resist your capacity to be sovereign. That's what it means to be sovereign. That means nobody can stop you from being what you are. That's the implication of it. Yeah.
Brother Ankh, Brother Thomas has his hand up.
Yes,
Oh,
I wasn't at the previous meeting, but my understanding of yoga, like say, reuniting with or a realization of the truth of what you are.
Mhm.
And once those things come back together, there is no separation between you and the ultimate truth. So that's how I would say it.
Absolutely. Excellent, excellent, and true. Yeah. So this is what we're working on, and this is what so last time we had that conversation, and so we laid that out from a Kemetaphysical standpoint. Today, we're going to go a touch deeper, and we're going to focus in on the system that was curated by my teachers, Sebama Mwata Ashby and his wife, Sebacha Ashby. I've kind of inherited the responsibility of, training people in that system as a result of teaching it for, 20 plus years. And so I want to share with you some insights into that, how that principle is actually applied in the postural system that we have. Can I do that? So what you're getting is, in fact, a sneak peek. This is actually the introductory presentation we make when we do our certification. So you are getting a sneak peek. I'm treating everybody here today like you were actually in the certification environment. Yeah. And so we're gonna give you that sneak peek. Let me go ahead and share my screen, and we'll get this party started, because I can just look at you guys and tell you are some party animals. Am I right?
That's why we go into yoga.
That's why you're into yoga. Absolutely. All right. So here we go. Let me go to the first slide. That's not what I want to do. Slideshow. All right. Can everybody see the screen?
Yes.
All right. So we're going to tell you a little bit about this system. I'm going to tell you a little bit about, and let me say this. There are people who strive to be scholars, and scholarship is really important, and we should strive to be scholars. And there are people who strive to be practitioners of said scholars. I would consider myself more in the category of practitioner. So what I'm sharing with you generally is based more on my experience of the system than my awareness of the history of the creation of the system culture and all that. I have studied that, but I'm a pragmatist. I don't think we should be enamored with Kemet just because it was cool 5,000 years ago. I think we should seek to figure out how we can apply its wisdom to some of the issues that we have in the here and now. Yeah, I think that's the best place for much of the knowledge is in the here and now. And the question becomes, how do we essentially transform that knowledge in a way, meaning make it applicable, because we're not 5,000 years ago, right? We're not in Kemet 5,000 years ago. I think we can agree that the American system as it's presented to us right now is about as far away from Kemet as you can get in many ways, even though we see that it is inspired by Kemet vis-a-vis the laying out of DC, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We know that Kemet is everywhere at the same time. But what has happened is it appears to be an inversion of the Kemetic spiritual system, right? This is very important.
Yeah, I see.
Yeah. So we take the same thing, but then we kind of, reverse it in a way, and we live out in a way that doesn't match what the true, especially spiritual goals of that culture were, right? So the highest spiritual goal in America is probably make a lot of money. Yeah. If you want to be seen as a really spiritually powerful person, make a lot of money. If you are an equally righteous person, you can best believe nobody knows who you are or cares. Yeah. We have no place for righteousness. We don't need you in government. We don't need you in church. We don't need you in athletics. We don't need you we have no place for you. Yeah. So the most righteous people in the world right now in America might be the homeless. Yeah. When you think about it, it's like, okay, yeah, you can't find a place around here. Yeah. So you have to roll with me and say, when it comes to America, you can say the hustle is real. Yeah. The hustle is real. This is a hustler's paradise. Yeah. In many ways. But let me not get too hard before I don't want to chase you away too early in the speech. Let me let you get comfortable first before I scare you. How about that? All right. Please make sure you're wearing your seatbelt so you can't run away. How about that? Okay. So we're going to talk about the posture system of Smai-Tawi or Sima-Tawi. Sima-Tawi would become the overarching term for all things, Kemetic yoga, if you will, all things Kemetic unification, the union of the two lands, right? And we know that that's not just a political concept, because we know that the symbol for Sima-Tawi has two gods on it. So why would you put a god on something that's just political, right? If you put the gods there, then that has to be spiritual. That's just common sense from my standpoint, although I've seen common sense not be so common. Okay, I hear somebody. Good. All right, so here we go. Everybody ready? Here we go. We're going to go through this. Now, so the Egyptian yoga exercise system, right? Or what we call, remember the Kemetic name, Jef, Sima-Paut, Neteru, right? So when you go back, you see these are the glyphs that are used for the Neteru, Jef, Sima-Paut, Neteru, right? And this is the understanding of it, right? So very important. So we're going to introduce to you that it is more than physical exercise. Physical exercise is very important. This is not that. Yeah. Keep this in mind. So Jef, Sima-Paut, Neteru, or Egyptian yoga exercise, is actually what? It is a ritual system of forms and special movements for becoming divine. Yeah, it's one thing to know you're divine, then how do you go about the work of becoming divine, right? Meaning aligning yourself with what is already there at the highest level. Yeah. One of the keys of manifestation, right? So that some of us are into manifestation. One of the keys to manifestation is habit. You become what you do. Show me somebody who says, I want to be a lawyer, but every day they're doing firefighter type activities. And I'll show you somebody who will forever be a firefighter. Yeah. At some point, you're going to have to shift to start doing what it is that you say that you are. That makes sense? So if you're going to be divine, you can't just say, I'm divine, and then you do regular stuff, so to speak, right? And you dally with the regular world, and you have to have some type of ritual for becoming divine. Does that make sense? This is key. Good. All right. So this is from the book African Origins of Hatha Yoga by Dr. Mwanta Ashby. All right, just so you know. Okay, so this is a picture. I just want to give a salute, of course, to Dr. Ashby and his wife here. A lot of things we can say about them. Together they have, as a couple, written and edited over 70 books on the subject of ancient Egyptian mysticism, religious philosophy, spirituality, and culture, right? And yogic philosophy. Their fundamental argument is that the culture that you're looking at it, when you understand it, is yogic in nature. Yeah. And which is interesting because as much as we talk about yoga in India, what we see at a cultural level, in many ways, the yoga seems not a part of the general culture. It was hidden away, literally, from the culture historically. Yeah. So it was kind of an anomaly to the culture in many ways. Now, those who know history can explain why that is, right? Because the original India looked one way, and then the India that as we know today changed, yeah, without getting into detail. Just to give you a framework for understanding that, right? So here in Kemet, we're able to see all of the dynamics that make up what later becomes known as yoga. All of that is embedded in the Kemetic, right down to the name of the country itself being Smaitawi, right? In other words, it's like saying yoga country, yoga land, the two lands of yoga, two lands yoking, yeah? And literally the imagery is yoking. It's literally, it's in the image, it's in the word, it's everywhere, right? Good. So let's get a deeper understanding of yoga, shall we? All right, I'm going to ask one of you to read for me this particular passage. Who would like to read? Anybody would like to take a chance?
I'll read. Netara.
Okay, Netara, go ahead and read.
Okay. A brief introduction to Thep Simapaut Netaru. The science of yoga constitutes the teachings required to achieve perfection.
Stop right there. Stop. We can't just gloss past that. Everybody heard that? Now, how many of you have never heard that about yoga before? That it constitutes the teachings required to achieve perfection. Right? And all the discussions that you hear about yoga is a big phenomenon in America now, right? $30 billion industry, a lot of things going on. Have you ever heard that? That's what we're doing. $30 million. Okay. All right. Continue on.
Which is the original essence of every human spirit. The path of nature, learning through mistakes and suffering, the process of trial and error is arduous and requires many reincarnations. Through self-discipline, the path of yoga offers a shortcut to ending the pains of human existence and to exist and to exalt the bliss of existence by achieving self-mastery and self-realization.
Stop right there. Anybody would like a shortcut through this madness? You ready for the shortcut, y'all?
Yeah.
Anybody still want to take the long way? No, I'm good, brother Ankh. I don't need to shortcut it. I'm really enjoying the scenic route of tribulation that I'm seeing here. Yeah. I want to get beaten up by life as many times as possible. No shortcuts for me. Yeah. All right, go ahead. So we get the shortcut and we achieve self-mastery, right? Self-realization. Go ahead.
The realization of one's true nature, God. In essence, we must learn how to give up our egotistical ideas and allow them to dissolve so that we may discover our deepest self, who is nameless, bodiless, immortal, and eternal. Dr. Muwada Ashby, Egyptian Yoga, Volume 1.
All right, good. So I want to set the tone again. You know, we touched on this last time, and I wanted to go a little deeper. Make sure you get that this yoga thing is some serious business, right? Because we get that it's about achieving your perfection, and we get that it's about the shortcut through the madness. Yeah? Good. And it's ultimately about the realization of your true nature. Yeah? Your true nature is not your national identity, for instance. Not even your racial identity. That's not your true nature. Yeah? That has a function in time and space, but that's not your true nature. what happens when you recognize your true nature? What happens when you're in a community of people who recognize your true nature? How does that change the dynamics of relationships? How does that change the way we look at each other? If you really looked at the people around you like you were looking at God or Goddess, right? How would that change the way you dealt with them? Yeah. Think of the sacredness of how you would approach life. Yeah, because this is what we're looking at when we look at Kemet, especially the oldest aspects of Kemet. Yeah, because this culture was at the apex, was at the highest level, and at the oldest points in Kemet, we see this. Right after that, much of what we call the dynastic era really is the fall from grace. As you can see, right down to the Romans, the Greeks, the Persians, etc., being the last of the dynasties. Yeah, good. Everybody good so far? Okay.
So good.
All right. All right. Just count the number of people. If the numbers start to dwindle, we know what's happening. All right. Oh, see that? One dropped out right then. We were at 36. And the person is like, ooh. He's getting serious. I thought he was going to talk about stretching and how to stretch my toes. That's not what he's talking about. All right, good. I'm sorry to put this book sideways. I don't even know why I did it. It's something, but it's called The Way of the Sage. And I like to tell the story of how I got into this whole process. Because like I said, I speak from my experience. So about probably, at least maybe 30 years ago now, I met a brother out of Jamaica who was a master musician, master African drummer, etc. And we've developed a bond. He was about 30 years older than me at the time. So I'm approaching 20, he's approaching 50. I don't know why we connected in the way that we did, but we did. And at the time, I was somebody who had become very militant because I had gone through a process with the church where I lost faith, yeah, in a lot of what I was, there were some things about it that just became unbelievable about some of the stories that were being told, yeah. There's a story in Leviticus where right after Exodus, which, thou shalt not kill, I think is number 4 in the commandments. And God literally says to Moses, kill all the Midianites. Yeah. Like all, that's kind of deep, right? And then, Moses tells this chief of the army to, go ahead and kill all, because, Big G said kill all, so you got to kill all. And the chief goes in and he slaughters, all the men. But the women and the children were, defenseless. So he felt like, I can't do it. I don't have the heart to just kill children and kill women. Yeah, this is in the book. And so Moses tells him, you shouldn't mess, I'm paraphrasing in my own, way. You shouldn't mess with Big G. If he says kill all, you got to kill all. Right? So he says to him, go ahead, essentially, and kill all the women kill all the children and kill all the women who have been with a man. The virgins, we gotta get a plan B, special plan B for them ones. Yeah, that's in the book. Now, for me, reading that, I was a young guy, 16 or 17, I'm like, that is absolute insanity to me. It's like, I absolutely couldn't be more, you can't tell me you're gonna run that past me and say, this is the infallible word of God. And if God said to kill everybody, you gotta kill everybody. Because that's what the word said. It's right here in the word. So it was things like that started shaking me up about the, not just the veracity of the book, but just the sacredness of it. It was like, something's not right here. Yeah. something's not right with some of those stories. And that continues on, even in the stories that, the story of Paul to me is very suspect. This guy, he is very anti-Christian in the beginning. He takes a journey down this road to Damascus. Nobody knows what happens to him on the road. For some reason, he sees a light in or he hears the sound, hears the voice and all that. And I'm like, you know what it sounds like? It sounds like he got jumped. It sounds like he got jumped by a gang of people who was like, Saul, why you doing this? You need to stop. We part of the Jesus gang crew. We don't do that. You don't do that. And Paul was like, you know what? I think I've seen the light. I have seen the light. I got you, right? I hear you loud and clear. You know what? I've seen Jesus. He has touched me in a very special way. I'm on a new change of plans, new game in town. We're going to take this thing global. Matter of fact, we're not just going to keep it in the Jerusalem thing and all that. We're going mainstream. We're taking it to the Gentiles. We're going to change up a couple of things, right? We're going to change the concept of Messiah and all that, because the Messiah to the Hebrew people means somebody who politically came and conquered the Romans. That's what Messiah means. But then, anyway, sorry, I'm going off. Why? It's not even Sunday, y'all. Why y'all got me talking about this stuff and it's not even Sunday? I don't even have my good Sunday hat with me that I could pass around. This doesn't make any sense. All right. So long story short, these are some of the things that had me changing the way I was looking at it, because I actually read the book. I actually read the material. You can I haven't read the Bible in 30 years, right? You can tell I still have this stuff. It's so embedded in me in that way that I don't necessarily have. I still understand, and I still embedded with those as part of my growing up years. So I appreciate that. But now I look at some of those stories a little differently. So I say that to say, it made me a very angry young man. Yeah, made me very angry, very militant, and also made me very atheistic. I just couldn't believe that stuff. I just couldn't believe it. I just couldn't believe. It's like, it's unbelievable. How can I believe something that's so unbelievable? That was my thought process at the time. Yeah. Now, understanding it in its metaphysical fullness is a whole different idea. But I'm saying we took it literally. Yeah. So that said, when I met this brother, Cedric Brooks, he was somebody who had a grasp of history like you couldn't imagine. Really good grasp of history. He was a part of a study group in South Florida called the Kepler Study Group. And, all of the scholars and historians, and he knew all these people and that kind of thing. And so, he started just sharing knowledge about history with me, and I got really interested. I had no idea about things like African spirituality at that time. Those were very foreign ideas to me. As a matter of fact, where I was coming from, those were very evil ideas. Yeah. The idea of a Black spirituality is scary to many of our people. Yeah. That we have our own spiritual is very scary. So I wasn't open to it. But he gave me a couple of books and he said, you need to read these books. One of the first book was a book called Medu Neter by a brother by the name of Raoul Nefer, out of the Asar Set Society, the Shechem of Asar Set Society. And that was a huge, for me, it just, something went off. I could understand it. It felt like parts of it were feeling like I was reading parts of my own mind that just had never been expressed. And then the same thing happened. Then he gave me this book right here, which is a very rare book. It's called The Way of the Stage, How to Understand and Practice Ancient Mystical Philosophy. And this was by Dr. Ashby. It's one of his earlier books. It's probably 96 or something like that this came out. Yeah, I was told by them that I might be the last person with a copy of this book because they don't reprint it. So I don't know another human being alive who has this book. If you do have it, please let me know, because then somebody else has it. Yeah. This was a book that kind of set me on it, because once I understood and I got deeper into what the ancient sages were about, it felt like home to me. Yeah, it just felt, it resonated very deeply. And so I became one of Dr. Ashby's first students and first initiates in the 96. He was teaching out of a university in South Florida. And that's what began my journey into the yogic field. Now, his thing was more the mystical philosophy. And I was interested in the mystical philosophy, not so much in postures. But in my case, what happened was that he saw the postures as a way of opening you up to the mystical philosophy. So before we could get into mystical ideas, we had to get the body right. We had to do postures and movements, and we had to identify with these things in that way, so that when we had the actual philosophical discourse on it, we would actually be in a state of mind that we could actually grab, we can wrap our minds around it in a suitable way. All right. That's what gets me on this journey. Yeah. So, so how do I go from that to actually being a teacher? I was an initiate for 4 years, and basically I had no intention of ever teaching yoga. Yeah. Particularly, a postural system. None. There was no interest on my part. As a matter of fact, from a cultural perspective, coming from the islands, the notion of a man putting himself in postures and all that kind of stuff was seen, let's just say, there's a lot of people who I know who would question my manhood if I admitted to them that I was a yoga teacher. Yeah. Let's just say that was the environment. Now, this is in the 90s and all. The world has changed. People can't even remember what the world was like then. They don't remember what, don't ask, don't tell policy was. They don't remember, like, those were radical in the time, right? But now it seems like, going retro, trying to use today's mindset and going retro, I think it does a disservice to history, huge disservice to history. Yeah, because it's just different, zeitgeists, if you will, different spirits of different ages that are coming along. So anyway, for that reason, I just was not interested in becoming a teacher. However, my teacher said, you know what, we're doing a certification. Would you like to get certified? And I said, sure, because I like, getting pieces of paper from my teacher. Studying with him has been really rewarding for me on a personal level. And I did the practice as a personal thing. So getting it certified just seemed appropriate. And so that's what I set out to do. Except I got into something I didn't know I was getting into, which is at the end of the certification, he says, the last thing you got to do to get certified is you have to start a class. Yeah. So I ended up starting a class to get certified, right? Which is I went to a study group, the Kepler study group in South Florida, and I said, you know what, we talk about Kemet. Here's a little aspect of the culture. Why don't we practice it and see if it actually does something for us? Yeah. And I went to them and we started. And by the way, that class continues to this day. So that's 21 years ago. It is now the longest running yoga class in the state of Florida, right? Not necessarily verified, but you can't find one longer, right? And it's a class run by us, right? We just celebrated 21 years in last December, all right? Consistently, the only time we've stopped, I think we stopped like 4 times, like twice during the pandemic, once during the hurricane, and yeah, I think twice during the hurricane. That's it. So other than that, every Sunday morning at 8 a.m. on the beaches, Hollywood beaches in South Florida, if you show up, you'll join a group of people who are doing this particular system that we're about to share with you. So one of my stories is I love to do these postures in very sacred places. So here you see some pictures of me at Stonehenge. So we took over Stonehenge, and then of course the people there said to us, you guys are so rude. You're dabbling in other people's cultures. When you have your culture, we don't mess with you when you doing your hip hop or whatever it is you're doing, and you're messing with our stuff. Yeah, very hilarious, right? Because the assumption, of course, is that this Stonehenge here had something to do with the current people in the British Isles. And the more you know about history, you know But that's not true. The more you know that the way Europe looks today is not the way Europe naturally is or naturally looked. Yeah, there was a process of, if you will, whitenization. Yeah, getting rid of a whole lot of people out of there, and blood miscegenation as a political tool, which we have not understood as a people. The politics of miscegenation, it's a huge thing. Subtly, it's discussed in Destruction of Black Civilization. Yeah. And but we fail to understand what that means. Yeah. So most of the royalty of Europe actually has Black blood. Yeah. They call it blue blood, right? And they don't tell you what that's about. But anyway, so let me not get too crazy. All right. We're talking about yoga. All right. This is me at the source of the White Nile in Jinja, Uganda. All right. So this is where, not too far from here is where I got married to my wife in a traditional Basoga and a Kemetic ceremony, right? In Uganda, right? At the source of the Nile River. And of course, this is the Great Pyramid, as you see me there, on there. So I find that when you are at sacred locations, specifically certain types of places have higher energy points. So when you see places where people built sacred centers like Stonehenge and all that, it's not an accident. There's a reason why that area, that spot was chosen, to do that. Yeah. And it's connected to the energy of the planet. So I personally like to tap into that. Okay. So before we get into some stuff, let's talk about the genius of the Neteru system. Can we? You all right with this? So we're going to go through this really quickly. Number one, this is the oldest documented series of movements that can be, keyword there, documented. So you will find people saying that they're older series of movements. Documentation beats argumentation. I think Manuel Pim out of California says, right? Documentation. So this is the oldest documented. Yeah. Meaning I can show you where we're doing this coming from. On the walls, on a temple. And if it's on a temple that's 3,000 years old, it's at least 3,000 years old. Yeah. Simple. Yeah. Our movements relate to divinities and ultimately neverture. Yeah. So no, these are not just postures that look cool, that stretch you out, that make you feel good. They do some of those things, but more importantly, they relate to divinities. This is the genius of the system. It's not just a movement, it's a key to the divinity. Yeah, we'll talk about that. It's a ritual of soul liberation. How do we know that? Because the system itself deals with or mirrors the story of the Assyrian resurrection, the mythology of the Assyrian resurrection. The more you know about that story, you realize that that story is not a story about Asar Set Heru. It's actually a story of the soul, of the journey of the soul through humanity, when you understand it in its proper context. Yeah. We are in the business of soul liberation. In other words, soul liberation is whole liberation. Yeah. All right. Soul, right? Some people say soul music, right? We talk about the soul. We are the soul people. Yeah. You think that's a coincidence? All right. So it actually captures the active forms of the divinity. So these movements are not just movements of the divinities. They actually capture the energy of the divinity. So when you're performing it, it performs the movement like the deity would perform the movement. So it has a context. It's a part of the narrative in a certain kind of way. Yeah. So you are enacting the role of a divinity in this system of yoga. Right? I don't think any other system actually makes it that clear that that's what you're doing, if they are doing that at all. Okay? The movements are systemized to ritualize living the myth. So when you do these movements, you are actually living the myth of the Assyrian drama. You're living the myth of the Noonien creation narrative. You're living it. Yeah, so you're not just talking it, you're not just reading it, you're not just studying it, you're actually living it. That's the point, to move like it, right? Movement is life. Very good? It's a holistic shedding, right? When done fully. So when done at the highest level, a shedding is a practice. It's a discipline. And this particular one is holistic because it deals with body, mind, and spirit for real. We don't just say it, you know, it's nice to say, oh, it's body, mind, and spirit. Yeah. Somebody wanted to say something, or that was just volume?
I think that was a mistake. Please proceed.
Okay, so this makes this an authentic yoga practice. In other words, if yoga is about connecting with the divine, then this type of practice would become an authentic yoga experience when done in that way. Does that make sense? Good. All right, so this is the genius of this particular system, by the way. Yeah, of this ancient system. Good, that has been curated for our time, right? Good. All right, so this is what it looks like. So these are what the postures look like in their context, right? So in other words, this is a documentation. I'm just showing you that this stuff is, we're not making this up. Yeah, this is how they appear in their locations. Yeah. So everything we're doing, we can actually connect with certain things. Yeah, in their context. Right. So at least when we present, you know, Kemetic, we're saying this is it. This is where we get it from. As a matter of fact, in one of the books, he actually points out where each one comes from. So you can actually follow and you know, you can go through it yourself and research and see exactly, you know, what that is about. Yeah. Good. All right. So now we're going to explore what they actually mean, a little bit about what they mean. This is an introduction, right? So in this particular image, we have an image of Lord Khepra, all right? And this is a creation scene. You see the serpent of creation called Mehen or Asher-Haral, right? And you see the 5 heads moving into, you know, multiplicity, yeah? And so when we perform this movement, right, we are in a non-differentiated state initially, and we move into an appearance of reality, right? This is Khepra represents becoming. That's the energy of Khepra, which we associate with, you know, is the form of Ra, right? The becoming, that energy of becoming, that energy of change, yeah, that we say is the only constant is change, right? Well, that's Khepra. Lord of all, which is what the Kemetic teach, right? Right. So we go into a non-being and a transcendent state. We go into a state beyond forms because we recognize that the things that we're seeing are just forms of something. Yeah. Forms of the exact same thing, just a different form. The different is the form of it. Yeah. Okay. And so we engender creation in this posture through the birth of Ra, the birth of Khepra, yeah? And we enter what's called the creation phase. So we leave a undifferentiated realm. So before there was anything, there was nothing. But that nothing was in fact everything in an unformed state, in a non-formed state, yeah? And that state is the purest of everything. That's the state of everything. That is the state that is within you that we are returning to, essentially, yeah, through our consciousness, yeah. even in human form, we can have the consciousness of a non-being, yeah? This is Nefertem, right? It's a form of Heru, right? Some people say. And this, in this context, it represents the divine child that sits on the lotus of creation. So creation emerges from primeval waters, if you will, right? Like the lotus that opens up to the, to the light of Ra, yeah? And Nefertem sits on that lotus as a divine child, as the perfected creation, right? So creation itself is a child, if you will, of the Creator, yeah? This is Noon. This is the primeval ocean, right? In this particular aspect, we emerge from the waters of Noon. Yeah, we are Noon emerging from the waters of Noon to hold up the boat of Ra. And the boat of Ra is creation itself. Each thing that takes on form is a boat of Ra in its own way. This is how we know we are the Neteru. Yeah, to come from an undifferentiated realm and to come across into life, into differentiated forms, and then, return, if you will, that through that cycle, we know, yeah, that is the emergence out of Noon, right? This is Shu, air, space, ether, right? Shu is that thing that creates the illusion of separation between us. Yeah, because there's space between you and me, we convince ourselves that you are you and I am me, and there's no connection because we're clearly separate, right? But Shu is literally, in that sense, standing between us. But Shu is also an aspect of us. I'll give you an example. That same air that's between us, isn't that what you need to breathe? Literally, if you stop doing that, you die, they say. The body is nothing without air. So if air is the thing that gives it life, aren't you then air on some level? Yeah, you are Shu. Yeah, as you are all these energies. Yeah, but it becomes clear to see it. You can see that you're Noon because there's waters in your body. We say the earth is 75% water. We say the human body is 75% water, right? Unless it lives in America, and then it's like 10, 15% because, right? Y'all dehydrated. Right? When was the last time you had a glass of water? Who did not drink water today? Don't raise your hand. It's okay.
Oh, stop.
I'm just playing with you guys, right?
Look, we all had some cola today. Come on.
We did, for sure. Guaranteed. If not Mountain Dew, right?
That's right. Oh, yeah, that's the one.
That's the one. There's a Fanta person in here somewhere. I could feel it.
Coffee.
There you go. The confessions are speaking now. Indeed. Yeah, this is all a part of us. Yeah, that's the point. Yeah, and so we continue to explore space with our Shu Wama. This is Ujara. So this is the sustaining of creation, which is the movement of Ra across Nut. Yeah, the goddess Nut. Yeah, the heavens. Yeah, the sun moving across the sky. Yeah. And this is how creation is sustained. Yeah, this movement here. All right, we go to the Geb phase. Now we get to the earth, right? So we go from that aspect of Ra and creation coming into being, and now we focus in on the earth phase, the physicalization of life. And we have the plow, plow. This is in Dendera, for the, those of you who have been, right? And this is it is a plow. It is a purification posture. Right? It's preparing ourselves for a kind of inner cultivation, right? In the story or the narrative, there's a relationship between Nut and Geb initially. They're locked in a kind of a lover's embrace. And so there's a separation that occurs that allows for the earth and heavens to be separated, because the earth and heavens are really not separated, just like the spiritual nature and the physical, not really separate, right? But they have the appearance of. And so Geb now, in that appearance of separation, has to do certain things to purify. And this is the example of that, yeah? Principle. This is a Geb wheel posture, right? For cleansing all of our energy centers, etc. Right? This is the fish of Ra. This is the guidance on the spiritual path, right? Two fish guide the boat of Ra. Forward bend, a pose of surrender, right? Sometimes you don't fight, you don't need to fight life, you just need to surrender to it, yeah? We have to get spinal twist, right? Another way of purifying the body, right? This is the way that Geb comes into an alignment and an attunement and an inner peace with himself. And this actually is a very important posture for the spine, right? And for the overall health of the body. This is one of the key postures, in essence, as far as the physical body is concerned, yeah? So if you deal with chiropractors, if you deal with whatever, they'll usually point to this or the cobra pose, which we'll come across in a second. So now we've prepared the earth. We've become attuned with the earth as a separate entity from the heavens. We now move into what's called, so our bodies now are prepared, right, through the Geb phase, or prepared to be in existence, but now it's prepared almost like in a more physicalized way. We need to transition out of that to the higher levels of being that we can attain, right? And so we have what's called the animal deity or the transition phase, yeah? And so in this phase, we deal with divinities that are part animal, part divinity in a sense. And what that means in this context is these are the aspects of the self that can go out of control or be brought into control. All right, so Selket here represents the protector who can inflict massive pain on somebody, right? So if that's out of control, you'll be out here taking people out, right? But if you use that to serve a higher purpose now, you use it to protect, you use it, right? And all that, and then you use it in a spiritual sense to protect your inner wisdom, your burgeoning spiritual development, right? Because people will attack that in various ways when they see you starting on down a different path that's not the normal that everybody else is doing, you know. Everybody else is, you know, go into the club and you say, no, I want to read my sacred text. And I want to really, now, oh, you know, you're ruining all the fun. Like, what's going on with you? Like, you know, something wrong with you, right? So you can use Selket energy in that way as a protection. Yeah, as a way of protecting your Heru aspect. That's the aspiration to be divine. Yeah, that's the Heru, to restore divinity to your throne, right? Your kingdom, yourself. Yeah, in that sense, that's the Heru aspect, and to, you know, and then the healer aspect, which is the Aset, right? Aspect, right? So in the myth, we actually see Selket playing that role. And that's what we're doing here. Here we have Sobek, and Sobek is a crocodilian type energy, right? And so this is mastery of strength, inner strength, and solitude. So also when it comes on to like things like, this is a very sublimative type posture. So in terms of like when somebody is sexually unregulated, this is a good type of posture to help hone in some of those types of energies, yeah, and those kinds of things, right? Without getting too deep into it. So very important. Also in the narrative, we see Sobek carrying the body of Asar from Syria, returning his body to Kemet, right? So he plays a role in, so Sobek now, essentially, what does that mean in a little sense? Is sometimes this journey of life, especially if you're on a spiritual journey, starts to feel heavy. feels like a burden. Yeah. So when we go into our sebek, it's like we place the weight of the burden on sobek, on our sobek aspect, right? So we don't, personally have to carry the weight of the soul. Yeah. And it's this heaviness that is all around us. Good. We have the arat, which is the cobra, right? This is now the awakening of the higher energy, the serpent power energy, which is, moving through the body. If you know the caduceus and you see the double serpent, right? We know that the sympathetic and the parasympathetic system are working in a certain way to create optimum states of energy. And what happens is we can move up the ladder of that energy into higher energy centers.
Brother Aakhu, so just a question on this one, does that help you with the serpentine energy moving up from the base of the spine to the brain?
That's right. To what some people call some people say the third eye, but it's really like to the sixth energy center. Yes. Is what we're talking about. Yeah. The center of the head.
Since you mentioned that, so in the East Indian tradition, it's Agna, that particular center.
That's right.
What is there a equivalent commission, Kemetic equivalent to that?
So yes, and it's so in the Kemetic, well, at least the way that my teacher teaches this, he calls it the Sefek Bara. So he uses essentially the same points, at least for the main energy centers. And Sefek Bara means the 7 souls of Ra. And so the actual, that is escaping me at this second, the actual name, but there's a book that we have that's called Arat Sekhem, or Serpent Power, where he details all of that, all of those aspects. Yeah, because each one, there's each one of these postures, there's a certain meditation that one can do in the posture and all. And so when you do a system that's based on the serpent power, you can actually just work on whatever centers you want to cultivate and develop as well. Yeah, similar.
Let me ask you. I'm sorry to cut you off. Let me ask you. So along with the postures, is there a sound that's uttered?
So in this particular system, not so much. Yeah, not so much. However, there is a hekau that can accompany the movement at a higher level. So there's a process that we call nuking, yeah, which is the I am, the nuke pu or the nuke. And you would say, in this case, for instance, nuke arat or nuke pu arat. Yeah?
Would you explain for us here? You use that term, hekau. Yeah. Could you explain that? Okay. If it doesn't take you too far off course on where?
No, it's right on course. It is a part of the process. So it's a very important part of the process. So the word, so in the I'm getting excited here. My head is going to the roof. The word in the Sanskrit would be mantra, or you would say chant in English, and hekau would be the Kemetic term. Although in the hekau, when you put it in its context, it's indicative of the word hekau literally can translate as the word magic. Yeah. And so the idea there is that through the vibrational tones, just the sounds of the names of the deities, the sounds of the I am, you actually are subtly changing certain vibrational patterns in the self that create a closer proximity to your divine nature. Yeah, just through the hekaus.
Brother Aunkh, you've already stated this, but a question came up in the chat. Do you offer online yoga courses? So that question has come up again. Would you just answer that before you press on?
Yes.
So there you go. The short answer is yes. All right.
So if you are interested in this stuff, we talk about, I do have 2 trainings coming up at the end. I'll give you some more details on that. Yeah. But yes, we do offer, this is part of what we're offering. This is what we're introducing people to, this world of, yoga from a Kemetic perspective, right? This is the Hero market, which a lot of people realize. So some people insist, and even in my community, I hear it, on calling this the Sphinx. And for me, calling the Hero market the Sphinx would be like a Christian calling Jesus the N-word and feeling comfortable with it. And not the N-I-G-G-A, I'm talking like, right? Because the Sphinx is a very, in its context, is a very almost diabolical type of beast. And the Hero market literally means that Heru, the son of God, the higher aspiration within the self, is on the horizon. How did we switch that and get comfortable calling that something so debased? Why are we so comfortable with that? I know why they are comfortable with that, right? I understand why they don't want to say Hero market. They'd rather say Sphinx. I just don't understand why we, those of us who are at a certain level of awareness, would take something as profound as Heru is on the horizon. You have to understand and even when you say Heru is on the horizon, it doesn't, you have to understand what that means in the context of the myth to understand what that means. Like, that means you are evolving to a place of mastery of your internal energies. How could you call that the Sphinx? I don't understand it. But who am I, right? I'm just a guy who does some yoga occasionally, right? So Heru is of the 2 lands is on the horizon. We have mastered the internal energies, right? All those lower forces that can take a hold of us, right? You could say the vices, you could say the lust, the anger, the rage, the whatever they are, all the deadly sins and all those kinds of things. When you now have regulation of your own powers, that's when Heru is on the horizon. Right? And if Heru is on the horizon, then we know that the next step is Heru. Yeah. This is when you've achieved a level of mastery. Now we're going through this, we're embodying this journey in our practice. Think about that. If you wake up every day and you're embodying this journey as a part of your way of life, every day you're ritually taking yourself to your higher nature. Yeah, very important. Then we enter the heavenly phase, the pet phase, this is one of my favorite phases in this system. It's also known as the triple goddess phase. So I'm a fan of this phase in particular because we have a history, recent history, of extracting the goddess principle completely out of spirituality in the major religions, right? There is no association in the major, so-called major religions. There's literally, feminine energy is not seen as divine. And those of us who even get evolved, we still do it. We still say God, right? Without saying goddess, without saying the balance, right? And I think for at least 1,000 years, we should just say goddess, just to balance it out. Since we've been so focused on God for so long, let's resurrect the goddess and at least bring those energies into balance. And this is me, and maybe I'm strange like that. But how would it feel if you went to church and they said, praise goddess? Look at what goddess has done for me today. I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for goddess. What goddess has done in my life. You see how weird that even feels and sounds to those of us for some of us? Like for some people, that's like, it just feels wrong. Yeah. That's how wired we have been to the masculine aspect of the divine. And that does a huge disservice, because the more you understand divinity, the more you understand that the feminine is where the manifestation happens. We shouldn't call manifestation manifestation. If we were smart, we would call manifestation womanifestation. Like, how did you get here? You didn't get here through no man. Yeah, anybody here came through a rib? I'm just playing. All right, let me not get too rambunctious. All right. Yeah, so this is the heavenly phase, and we are guided over by the great goddesses. So we have Nut, right? And Nut in the Kemetic represents the heavens. Yeah, and she also represents that which is infinite and that which is constantly expanding. So as a part of your, this is a part of your consciousness. You know how every day you can get up and learn more? That's your Nut aspect. As much as you learn, there's still room for forever to learn, isn't there? You never get to a point where you say, you know what? I just can't learn another thing. I'm sorry. It's not possible. My head is too full. There's nothing else. There's no room left up there. There's no space, right? You know how your computer runs out of space? Yeah. Imagine you don't run out of space. Yeah. That infinite aspect is in you. It's there. It's there. And it's very powerful. It's the goddess principle, the great mother. Of course, we have Ma'at, right? She's probably the most known of the goddesses, aside from Aset, right? Think about it. If the Kemetic people were right, and righteousness, harmony, balance, order, truth, reciprocity are feminine energies, is it any wonder why we struggle to get there today? If justice is feminine, Ma'at, right? Here they tell us justice is blind, don't they? Why do you want justice to be blind? Yeah. What's that about? Okay, right? So we're balancing our way through this journey with Ma'at. Yeah, she is at the front of the boat of Ra in the Ra-Anonian creation. Yeah, she's ordering the way. We have Aset, our intuition and wisdom. Yeah, our healing capacity. Yeah, our ability to know the unknowable. That's intuitive wisdom. Yeah, she knew how to make a dead man come back to life. You have to understand the power in that. Yeah, she knew how to revive him. Yeah. You know what's interesting about that, and I'm assuming that everybody here has already a high level of understanding about the Assyrian myth, because it's a common one. If you look at what she represents in terms of, I said, if you think of the power that every woman has the power to give birth, is that right? No woman had to go to a library and read the book on how to give birth. The science is the science of how to put the baby together. Like, this is really amazing. Like, we should really honor just this. This is why ancient cultures were so matriarchal and matrifocal, because what the science that's in you is unlike anywhere else. Like, you know intuitively how to put a baby together. A man can drop a seed, but 9 months later, you got a full human being. Yeah, that's power. And what's interesting in that context is when you look at the story of Aset, what she does with a Sar is literally, it's that same power in an externalized way. In other words, what a woman does in her womb essentially is pull pieces of her body to make the body of the baby. Yeah, that's what's happening. Like, literally, that's what's happening. Well, she was able to do that with a SARS body, put the pieces back together. it's hard to, you know, articulate what I'm saying here, but the fact that she was able to externalize the power that was within her as the ability to do that in the context of him being dead and then bringing him back to life is like a super inversion of that power. Yeah. That is incredible to think about, at least for me. Yeah. All right. Good. We have a set's throne, and the throne, of course, is the sanctioning power, right? It's what allows for the in the Kemetic, it's the mate is the females that determine who the king becomes. Yeah. And Set is the throne, right? Symbolically, we know that the way we identify her often is the throne. Yeah. On our head. And then we have a Set's embrace. Yeah. And it's her love, her protection, and her wisdom that brings forth this, her unconditional love, by the way. Yeah. And I would say that in that context, the kind of love we're talking about is very different from the love as we know it today. Love as we know it is highly, in the West, is highly transactional. You know, you make me feel good, I love you. You start making me feel good, I don't love you. Yeah, it's that simple. You do what makes me feel good. That's how this works. Yeah. So these are things. So to be in a set type force is to be on a whole different level, yeah, of love, even. Yeah. We come to the establishment phase, almost there. Yeah, establishment phase. And we have the Jed pillar of Asar. Yeah. This is now being anchored in something more than the physical reality.
Do you have your heels together in this pose?
I do. Yes.
Thank you.
When you see it, you see the 2 feet, meaning when you see it in the statues, the 2 feet are actually one. And literally, you'll see it's 1 foot. So it's the idea of moving out of duality and anchoring yourself in oneness, right? Which somebody talked about, the oneness consciousness. Yeah, we actually exist in a consciousness of oneness, and we're moving to a level where we can perceive the oneness of all. Yeah, that's why it's easy to unify in that type of context. It's not easy when you can't see the oneness. Yeah. So this is verticality, being upright. That's the headstand. Yeah. This is such a powerful movement that it's actually not just that we see the image of somebody doing it. It's actually like it's almost like it's a figure in the actual glyphs as well. Yeah. So it's almost like a letter. Yeah. Very interesting that it's used that way.
And what is the power of the headstand?
The power of the headstand is the closest thing to everything that a posture can get. Because one of the things so when I was coming up, what we would say is that 15 minutes of headstand a day is the fastest path to enlightenment. So when you reverse the energies of the body, right? So the lower becomes the upper and the upper becomes the lower. The energy, the concentration of energy is on the higher energy centers. Yeah. So you're activating, right? Heart point, throat, head, crown at a much higher level. Yeah. You're giving a whole level of nourishment to them. That means you're conquering fear, as an example, right? So headstand is a very scary pose. But when you conquer it, you essentially are conquering that because it's connected to a lot of different energies. Yeah.
Brother Aunkh, can you go back to that pose? So as your hands are like that, you're supporting your neck as well?
That's correct. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah. I promise you, it's not as hard as it looks. Unless you do it wrong, then it's
Then it's bad.
then it's bad. It's real bad. All right. And then we come to Kepra, right? The rebirth, the recreation of oneself. Yeah. So you notice we kind of started with Kepra and we came all the way back. Yeah. But in this context now, it's a new becoming. You have moved out of the person that came into a dual consciousness to the person who is now existing in dual consciousness from a standpoint of having a unified consciousness. Yeah, that's where this Kepra is. So now you're taking on this divine identity. And that divine identity is symbolized by the Sheti or the Nahast, right? The Sheti is one of the terms for mummy. But I don't like to use the term mummy either, because I think that's been degraded as well, as if you watch the movies. But because a Sheti is really the preparation for eternity. It's not actually death in the sense that we think of it. It's actually preparation for eternal life. Yeah. And the word we use there is Nahas, the great awakening. Awakening to your true divine nature. So the journey is complete and the great awakening has occurred. You are eternal, you are immortal, you are all there is and all there ever will be. Yeah. So let me just close out by sharing with you. This is the benefits of consistent practice. So like I said, I'm a practitioner at the end of the day. People can argue whether they accept that or not, what I just said or not. That's fine. Let me do it and see what happens. That's the kind of person I am. So I've been doing this. I'm probably the person who's done this system the most for the last 20 plus years. Yeah, as I've told you. Yeah, I would say 80% of the time it's been every day. Yeah. So the first thing I notice personally is divine identification. Yeah. Being able to actually see divinity in all. Yeah, that's what 20 years of practice gives me. High levels of peace. Yeah, the more you do it, the more. Now, peace is actually very synonymous with divinity. Yeah, in the same way as we use the word hetep, and that's one of the yogic terms we use. That's a parallel of the word nete. Yeah. Compassion. This is a very profound energy. Compassion to me is likened to divinity, because what happens when you understand people's experience from their experience and not yours is the judgment goes down. Yeah. And the appreciation of their own experience as if it was your experience goes up. Yeah. This is very important because sometimes in our community, we like to talk about our people, right? Some people like to say, oh, them cousins of yours, right? You got them cousins, you know who your cousins is, right? Like say things like that. And what we mean is that, there's something irreconcilable about their nature, right? They're just different, if you will, right? But when you become compassionate, like you see that completely different. You recognize that whatever that is still some aspect of you at the end of the day. And that's very powerful. Activating of your purpose, your genius, and your inner light. Yeah. When you're on a path like this, a sense of purpose, of course, becomes very, very, becomes much more clear. Yeah. I remember being at a university, doing a university talk many years ago. And I asked the graduating class of the university, how many of you are clear on, how many of you are not clear on your purpose? This was a graduating class. These are people about to go in the world and get a degree in whatever they're getting a degree in and go and work in that field. And I asked these people, these should be, in my humble opinion, if they've gone through years of college and high school and all that. And these should be the clearest people about where they're going in life. And I asked them, how many of you are not clear about your purpose? I was shocked that about 95% of the hands raised. They had done what they were told to do, but they didn't know why. They didn't know what the point was. Other than get a good job, hopefully. Other than that, what's the point? I mean, that's cool, but what's the point? Does that fulfill your soul? It's a thought, right? So a practice like this helps you to activate that, right? Your genius, your inner light. The kind of thoughts, the kind of things that come up, the kind of creativity that will come up in a practice like this is amazing, yeah? Then we have what I call meta flexibility. It's one of my favorites. And meta flexibility is flexibility. People think of yoga and they think about physical flexibility. And I say, that's okay, that's great. The most powerful flexibility is meta flexibility, right? Flexibility of the mind and spirit. Your ability to bend but not break. Yeah, under pressure, under situation. When you have meta flexibility, that's a whole different level. Yeah, things that used to upset you or send you off the edge, now they don't. Because you're meta flexible. Yeah, I'd much rather you do a yoga training where you become meta flexible than do a yoga training where you become flexible. Personally, because that's going to serve you in life on a whole different level. Physical flexibility is cool. You know, the body is good. Meta flexibility, oh, you can carry that everywhere you go. Because there are going to be people wherever you are who's going to test that meta flexibility for sure. Inner sovereignty. Yeah. Inner sovereignty. Understanding that you are sovereign within your own being. And being able to move in that. In other words, you just move differently when you recognize that you're sovereign. No matter who's talking, you could be in front of a judge. You know, you could be in front of somebody who's, you know, is an authority figure or whatever. And it doesn't mean you disrespect people either, yeah. But it just means you move differently because you understand your sovereignty in the process. Yeah. And then there's healing on multiple levels. So in the course that I do, we have a whole section where we deal with healing with yoga, right? But I've noticed that the healing that I could go into stories of my own personal healing that's happened as a result of doing this. That's, you know how we have this thing now where we talk about mental health and all that, and we're talking about these things in our community now more than ever. You'd be amazed at what a practice like this can do in that type of context. Yeah. Because we are Sankofering, we are doing all of that in one fell swoop, yeah? Mystical synchronicities. Mystical synchronicities. Oh, if I had time, I could tell you a whole lot of stories about mystical synchronicities. Things that happen that fall into alignment that just are unexplainable, but they happen. And when they happen, they have a meaning that's beyond what you could ever expect. Yeah. Mystical synchronicities. If we have time, somebody asked me a question about one mystical synchronicity. I'll give you one story before we go. If we have time, if somebody asked that question, all right? So I'll leave that up to you guys. All right. And then I say worry-free, panic-free living. Now, we live in a culture that is completely justifiable for people to be worried about everything. Worry about your job, worry about your neighborhood, worry about your friends, worry about your family, worry about your relationship, worry about your children, right? Worry about the police, worry about the government, worry if the world's gonna come to an end tomorrow, worry if, right? Like, and there are many people who are walking around with all these worries. These are all worries and they're all a part of their, right? If you're anchored in a different consciousness, if you knew that it's all one, yeah? If you really knew that, yeah? In the ultimate sense of it, there's nothing to worry about. Yeah. In the ultimate sense. Doesn't mean you don't do things and act out in real life and address certain things if necessary. It just doesn't become worry. Doesn't become panic. Yeah. People that panic and worry are not healthy, not behaviors of healthy people. However, you know, there's a lot of things that's not behaviors of healthy people that we do. So, but we're working on becoming healthier. All right. So with that, I'm going to end. Let me just say, let me just conclude by saying two things. Somebody asked about it inline. So I focus mainly on certification at this point. So for people who might be interested in actually learning how to do this themselves or learning how to share with others, teach with others and so on, I do a certification. And so if you are interested, I have an online certification coming up in July. I have a promotional webinar that I did on talking about it. If you'd like more information on that, or I have a retreat. I also do a 2-week intensive. So for those of you who want the full total immersion experience, where you eat like a certain way, because on our retreats, we only do live foods. We don't do cooked foods at all. Organic. We only get spring water from an actual spring. We don't actually buy bottled spring water. We get water from a spring, as an example, right? We go out in the springs and we get the water. Yeah. And things of that nature. So it's completely as holistic as we can make it. And it's a whole different level of experience. It is not cheap, folks. Yeah. It's not easy for me to present you with a high quality of spiritual, physical, you know, thing like that, where you wake up every morning on the beach and all that kind of stuff. It's not cheap. But it is always worth the investment, just so you know, if you're the type of person that's looking for a very high level of transformative experience, and you do get a certification out of it included with that. If just on the healing level alone, it's super powerful. And if you wanted the certification, you get that too. It's like a double bonus, really, right? So if you're interested in any of those, you can text to me at that number right there. Text online cert if you want to look at the online cert. So if you have a, you know, the online cert is a lot less expensive because I'm not paying for your hotel or accommodation or all that. So it's the retreat, of course, is 2 weeks. It's 14 days. We're longer than the average retreat. It's not a 7-day retreat. It's 14 days. So it's a huge endeavor. All right, good. Text to those numbers. If you want either one, just text. You'll get more information. So I'll send you a preview of each one of those, and you can then, you don't have to buy. You just text and see if it's for you. And if it's for you, then you can take action. If not, don't worry about it. We still leave as family. All right. Good. That's me for tonight. That's my presentation. Is everybody still here? Oh, we still got only 2 people left. Good. Excellent.
No, I have a quick question, Baba, if I may.
Absolutely. Who wants to speak?
This is Sister Gina from Wosay.
Okay.
Should these be done in sequence? The movement.
The movements as I train them are done in sequence.
Okay. Thank you. This has been beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. And they don't have to be, but if you want to follow the apex of what the system is, meaning that, you know, to live the myth and those kinds of things, it helps because you can actually, as you're going through it, you're actually thinking about the mythology and the story and all that as you're performing the movements. Yeah. So it helps. Yeah. You don't want to sort of be resurrected before, you know what I mean? Heru, you know, in that kind of stuff. Like you want it to flow in a certain order. Yeah.
So are there any other things that we should be thinking about, talking about, or doing something about? Any questions that we need to address? We've gone over a little bit, but nobody has complained. Sister Judy has her hand up. Go ahead, Sister Judy.
Yes, I just wanted to say wonderful presentation, Netta Ankh. I really, really enjoyed it. I'm interested in the class, but I wanted to ask you, and I may have missed this, did you explain or go into a little more detail about what you are? I think at the first class you mentioned you're going to be in Sacramento and or somewhere in the area, Oakland. What's going on with that?
So that is the online certification, July 9th to October 29th. And the way that works is at the end of the certification. So we'll start, so 90% of it will be online. And then the last weekend or so, I will be in there and we'll do an intensive, like a 2-3 day intensive based on everything that you've learned up to that point. And we'll include in that a special sacred ceremony of conclusion as well. So usually what happens during that weekend intensive is, people present what they've learned. And then, like I said, we have a special ceremony to seal up what has happened. So you actually, and then you get your certificates and that kind of stuff. Yeah. For those.
Okay, and the certifications allow you you have more than one class, but some of your certifications allow you to become a trainer as well, a teacher.
You will be able to teach others. So there's 3 aspects we work on in certification. So we work on you as a spiritual practitioner, which means that you're able to practice the system by yourself. And you can do it anytime, and you can practice it at a higher level than the average person who comes to a class, because you're informed a little different, and we actually connect you to other resources. Our teacher offers higher in-depth courses in the mythologies and all that kind of stuff. So it's a great way for you to become an in-depth practitioner. And then we also teach to you becoming a teacher. So there's a part of the course where you're going to be focusing on actually teaching classes, where you actually learn how to teach in front of people, how to execute the movements, how to breathe in movement, because the breath is a very important part of activating the principles and all that. And so we deal with that a lot. So, and you become proficient at that. And so we teach you how to do that. And then we also focus a little bit more, as you know, my background is in marketing, actually. That's much of what I do. And so we talk about marketing from a Kemetic perspective, because one of the things that people don't, when I go to Kemet, I see marketing everywhere. Yeah. This is how I began to figure out that the Western economic system is actually the inverse of the Kemetic system. Yeah. So the monetary system is like it actually is, I call it the age of money theism. Yeah. Money is the god of this time from the standpoint of where the Western realm is, right? Which is why you look powerful when you have money, right? Everybody respects you when you have money, right? They worship you when you have money, right? This is what celebrity and all this stuff is about. And so what has happened is divinity has been replaced for money. That's what was happening. Yeah. And the question is, if you know that, then how do you maintain integrity because obviously you're in it, so you're going to have to generate money, right? There's no way around it. Like, you're not going to be able to do things unless you have a community that has, now, once you get to the point of having a community that can be completely self-sufficient and so on and so forth, you won't need it. But in the immediate standpoint, you're probably going to be working within where you are, and that's going to require money. But money's energy sometimes for some people can be very disruptive to their spirit, right? People, it's the biggest cause of relationship problems. Yeah, and male-female dynamic, but just relationship and problem. And then I would say, as a people, I have a theory where I said that the purpose of money in the Western context was to destroy Black people. Yeah, or is, I should say. All right. And how do you know that? Because there's a direct connection between destruction and money when it comes to us. Vis-a-vis.
Brother Ankh, we have a question
Okay,
for
sorry.
you from I don't want to miss him. King Kevin has his hand up and he has a question for you.
Yes, bless up. Yeah, great presentation. I had a question, and regarding superpowers, right? Because it seems like these yoga positions emulate or imitate positions of our ancient ancestors. So, is the purpose? I know there's several purposes and several benefits, but does any of these positions or any aspect of yoga that you've heard of, maybe not what you spiritually, your spiritual beliefs or um, the practices that you do with yoga, does any of them have anything to do with I want to say like gathering energy from the earth or Mother Nature to for like superpowers such as fighting the enemy or warriors in the battle or something like that, and they use yoga to like harness what I'm saying, superpowers from Mother Nature. Like, or have you heard of anything like that?
Sure, I've heard of things like that. And the short answer is yes, of course, because when you assume the act of being a divinity, like when you act like the divinity, you become that divinity. Now, the way that plays out is often psycho-spiritual. So I'll give you an example. What would be the superpower? So the danger, I think, in with a little, if you bear with me here, and what you're saying is the way we think of superpowers is really cultivated by, the Marvel universe, and we grew up watching Superman and Batman and all that kind of stuff. And so when we say superpower, we kind of put it in that type of context. Now, even when you understand the stories of, for instance, X-Men, right? You can see in that is a narrative that comes out of us. Like Professor X was a way of flipping the script. He was kind of like Dr. King, right? Magneto was kind of like Malcolm X, but they kind of flipped it around you so you didn't see, and you didn't realize that the mutants was essentially who we are in this world where we're fighting to be accepted. And there's two ways of doing that. And this is, so so the real secret is you already have the superpower. You already, in a sense, you know what I mean? Like when you are divine, which you are without getting into the, the depth of it, you already have a superpower. Now, the thing about the superpower is the superpower is activated, like you said, through the force of yoga. But then what that means, right? The word yoga means what? What does it mean, y'all?
Unity. No, I'm sorry.
Unity. Right? So we have to be careful not to think that I am going to be Superman flying around and all that kind of stuff, and I'm going to leave everybody, and I'm going to, right? If you understand, all those heroes, you understand that the prototypical hero is Heru. It literally sounds like hero, like it probably was. The word probably was pronounced hero, might have been, right? Because we know the vowels were, right, kind of used in a certain way. So that's what we're talking about. We're absolutely talking about that now. Now, taking it out of the context of the way that we think of heroism, right? Because the heroism is in becoming divine, right? That's the real thing. Now, in becoming divine, what does that mean? Yeah. What really makes that? Does that mean you're stronger than everybody else? You're faster than everybody else? What does that really mean? And so what that means is you begin to take on the agency of the divinities, because each divinity is a divine power, is a cosmic force, right? Like breath, right? Obviously, if you're breathing a certain way, it's going to change your life. If you're learning how to breathe deeper, just that alone is going to eliminate the risk of about 50% of all degenerative diseases. Just changing how you breathe. Is that superhuman? Absolutely. Do people think of it that way? No. No. Doesn't feel like nothing, right? But how powerful is it for you to be able to just eliminate the possibility of things like cancer and all that from your life just through your breath? Yeah. That's powerful. That's a superpower to people who are uninitiated. Yeah. The key to these powers is, though, everybody got them, technically speaking. Yeah.
All right. Somebody put in, I love that concept you just gave. It's about 6:52. I want to thank our special great guest, Brother Aakhu, and what a enlightened presentation. I want to thank everyone. At one point, I think we had 40 people, and for the most part, we had 38. And so I want to thank everyone for coming and listening and participating. Before we leave, let's see, somebody put in the chat, somebody said, yes, I love that. Haven't heard that phrase in a while. I know what that means. All right. So
Yeah.
just before we go, I just want to let you know for next time, we're going to have this brother here, Stephen Labroie. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing his name correctly, but he will be talking about building human equity, a line of credit, the secrets to creating a lifetime of assets in any economy. And it'll be on this same Zoom. So essentially, he's talking about financial literacy, the wealth building secrets of insurance. And then on May 3rd, we'll have something to do with Pastors for Peace in Cuba, the Embarcadero and Embarcadero. You can tell from the Bay. The embargo and medical schools, and that's going to be on May 3rd. And then we see this brother a lot on our Zoom. Brother Keedy is going to be giving us a presentation on superfood life and the matrix. And so, I'm sorry, what did that say?
To the max.
To the max. You know what? Some of your faces are cutting me. Oh, there it is. All right. And then tomorrow, we're going to be focusing on Amen. This book, we're going to talk about the origin of the word Amen. And something that I am just astonished about, and this is just an excerpt from the book. The place, if you look here at the bottom of the page, it says European missionaries incorrectly called the city Amina or El Amina. It's really Amena. So hope to see you tomorrow. Yes, hope to see you tomorrow. And thank you again, Brother Aunkh. Any closing
Great
words?
job.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Beautiful.
It really was wonderful. It was great.
All right. All right.
Pardon me, Minister Imhotep, before you, I wanted to just make a correction on the brother next week will be Stephen. His name is pronounced Labroie, like boy.
Labroie. Okay, thank you.
And he's definitely going to share some stuff about life insurance, financial literacy, but things you never knew about how to build wealth with life insurance. It's quite interesting.
All right. Well, thank you. And life, prosperity, and health. We'll see you. We'll see you next time.
Can I leave with everybody with a special Kemetic blessing?
Please,
Yes,
please.
Thank you.
I'm going to leave you with the words of your ancestors. Hetep, DC, Neter, Iri, Metuaj. May the divine cause your life to flourish.
Ashe, thank you.
Ashe.
Thank you.
Ashe.
Thank you.
You are.
Ashe. Wonderful.
Thank you so much. Great job.
Uncle Johnson is.
Hey, Thondiway and Keisha, you guys where are you guys?
in Orangeburg, South Carolina.
All right, all right.
We were traveling from Charleston as we listened, well, at least tried to.
Well, glad you could join us. Brother Damani, he was giving us our theology. Okay, he's gone. All right.
Okay.
Take
Bye.
care.
Good night, everyone.
Good night. Good night.
Hey, you know, something you said, Ankh, was that, you know, we're all family, and, you know, just in this session, you've done that, you know, as you were explaining the divine connection to everyone, and certainly you create an atmosphere where that happens in these sessions. I want to thank you again.
It's my honor to be here and to be able to serve in this capacity.
Oh, Minister Imhotep, I have a question for him that interests you as well. What is your relationship with Sister Maram? Wait a minute.
Marimba Ani.
Marimba Ani, I can never say her name, because I know that she's in Atlanta. And when I came to see your presentation, she walked in and sat right behind me at the Black Dot bookstore. That was pretty exciting.
Yeah, so she is my spiritual mother. And yeah, she's my spiritual mother. There's no other way to say it. And we have a really, I'm very proud of the relationship that I've built, you know, with her over the years, over many, many years now. And at least probably 15 years, 16, 17, something like that. But yeah, she's definitely a go-to for deeper perspective on some of these things that I am sharing. And yeah, I don't know if people know, she's actually having an event in May here in the Atlanta area. It's an event called a Bokasim Sum Sum. I would like to share some information if that's something, you know, people might be interested in.
That would be great, because we have about 20 people, friends and former members that are in that, and current members that are in the area. So that.
All right, I would love to share that information with you. I'll share that right after we get offline.
And I was going to say quickly too, right before coming to the show tonight, I was driving. I spoke with Jawabu, who is a young brother.
Her spiritual sons too.
Who's also working with her, and he told me all about this event. And so I told him, Minister Imhotep, that we might, you know, want to see him come on. He's a young brother, probably about 29, doing great things, and he's working directly with this event. And maybe we can have them on Black Knowledge Matters, since we're trying to get some younger people. And yeah, we'll talk about it later. I'm sorry, just wanted to say that.
Oh, no, that's good. Thank you. Glad to see you, Auntie Afua, St. Michael, Zarita Wilson. Glad to Shem Hatepi Arat.
Oh, Shem Hatepi Arat. Oh,
yes.
That's a familiar name. It's good to see you.
Yeah, I don't know who he is, but yeah.
She is.
She is. I'm sorry.
Yes, she's initiated in the tradition of Dr. Ashby and everyone. All right. Good night to you all, and I will send that information over.
All right.